This is a U.S.-China Media Brief produced by the UCLA Asian American Studies Center. The U.S.-China Media Brief features interviews with experts and other prominent individuals involved in studying and documenting the dynamic and ever-evolving relationship between the United States of America and the People's Republic of China. I'm Russell Leong, Director of the U.S.-China Media Brief of the UCLA Asian American Studies Center. Our purpose is to provide a more balanced view of U.S.-China relations for the U.S. media through our media brief and website.
So it's really an honor and a delight to be here again and to share with you some of the ideas and about the conditions of the Chinese in the United States. Russell said that I should try to feel free to use whatever Chinese dialect I feel comfortable with. But I do speak the three major Chinese dialects, and that's Mandarin, Cantonese, and Minnan, or some people here, of course, in Monterey Park would say it's Hanhua. Actually, that is my native tongue. My mother tongue is Minanhua, because I was born and raised in Cheng, and so I still count, do all the mathematics in my mind when I have to in Minanhua. So, I'm really delighted to be here. 很难得有这个机会来跟大家讨论一下，到底目前美国的华人社区的情况是怎么样？真难得有这个机会来跟大家注意来讨论一个真重要的问题，就是今仔日美国的华人的现状是什么？好難得有呢個機會嚟同大家討論美國華僑嘅現狀。當然我哋而家係美國嘅華僑，所以我哋應該咧盡量係用英文嚟講。But I do, I have been very fortunate to be exposed to so many languages, and I'm very passionate about languages. Ever since I was a child, and I made a point, in fact, of studying a lot of languages. For 10 years in my graduate school, studying mostly Middle Eastern languages, and I believe I was the first Chinese to be to go into that field of study. Hebrew, Babylonian, Phoenician, Ugaritic, Hittite, all these different languages. But of course, since I became very active in Asian American communities, I started teaching Asian American Studies in Berkeley in 1969. I have pretty much given back my 10 years of graduate studies in those languages back to the university. This is a very, very challenging subject matter, and given the short time that I have, it's very difficult to sum up the complexity and the magnitude of Chinese America today. How do we begin to do something like this? Well, let me begin by suggesting that, I call your attention to an essay that I wrote. Exactly 40 years ago, I wrote an essay entitled Chinatown in Transition in 1969, describing and analyzing the passing of the old segregated Chinatown-based Chinese American community and the dawning of a new, self-conscious, increasingly diverse, but still uncertain Chinese America outside of historic Chinatowns, and within various major cities across the United States, and also a Chinese America that's beginning to proliferate. In fact, characterized the post-war Chinese population movement to be an exodus from Chinatown. And it was an exodus. Before the Second World War, Chinese population in America was predominantly confined to Chinatown. And if you go to San Francisco Chinatown, you cross the street of Broadway, you could be spit upon or kicked by the people on the other side of Broadway Street. So segregation was a very, very firmly embedded in American society And Chinatown, in fact, stands today as the strongest symbol and testimony to the historic apartheid policy that we had for Chinese Americans. So in that essay, I used 1968 as a kind of a turning point, because 1968 rage and uprising in San Francisco, Chinatown, was really the turning point and the coming of age of Chinese American ethnic and political consciousness. And I tried to characterize the, this transition as the result, quote, of the influence of American Revolution, Negro Revolution, and the U.S. policy with regard to so-called Red China that we call at that time. So in other words, the transition that was taking place in 1968, and there was a huge kind of uprising in Chinatown in 1968, in 1968, against the conditions that Chinese were placed into, was very much influenced by the Black Revolution. At that time, we call them Negro Revolution, and then the U.S.-China really tension and hostility, that existed back then. At that time, I was a graduate student in ancient Middle Eastern studies and an activist on campus and in Chinatown, San Francisco. The essay was my attempt to understand how the sudden influx of Chinese immigrants in the late 1960s, beginning in late 1960s, contributed to the rapid demographic, social, and political transformation of Chinese American community, not just within Chinatown, but in colleges and universities and in the suburbs in major metropolitan areas across the United States. Not too widely known at that time was the fact that this new Chinese America that's emerging was also emerging in the shadow of the tension between the United States and China due to an escalation and expansion of the American involvement in the Vietnam War and to the perennial cross-strait conflict between mainland China and Taiwan, which at that time was the KMT government, protected by the United States. Both our Navy, our Air Force, and Army had bases in Taiwan at that time. In writing this essay, I was trying to be simultaneously a detached analyst and an activist, hastening the change that was redefining Chinese American community from a historic, repressed ghetto to an enlarged space beyond geographic Chinatown, contesting the viability and effectiveness of traditional Chinatown leadership that I deemed oppressive and obsolete at that time, and also founding modern social and service organizations to take the place of the family and district associations, and cultivating a new breed of leaders that straddled between traditional Chinatown and the newly emerged and more assertive Chinese American community outside of the Chinatown ghetto. That phenomenon, in fact, I just summarized, did in fact come to pass, and new leaders that straddled between the old Chinatown and the new community that were emerging in the suburbs, in fact, became increasingly influential.
The preceding copyrighted program is a property of the University of California, Los Angeles. All rights reserved. It may be used freely for educational and not-for-profit activities. For other uses or to make an inquiry, please contact the Asian American Studies Center at UCLA.